This is Josh White, and this is the ITS report for September 9th. Today's Monday, and I looked for some news today for my news updates, but basically everything worth talking about was about Syria, and I'm sick and tired of talking about Syria. We all know that we shouldn't get involved. The only people who don't seem to be convinced are those in government. So what I did want to talk about today is Anarchy versus Minarchy. In the United States, the Minarchy camp is mostly dominated by constitutionalists. These are people who think we should just get back to the Constitution and that should be our governance. And I have respect for the Minarchy camp. Small government is better than big government, but it's by no means good. A lot of the time when you hear people talk about Minarchy, especially constitutional Minarchy, they bring up the Founding Fathers and how these people are supposed to be bastions of liberty. Historically, this isn't accurate. What we saw right after the American Revolution, while it may be an improvement over living under the monarchy, was not freedom. The American Revolution started based on taxation. There was roughly a 1% raise in taxes, and the Founding Fathers, and I believe it was about a third to a half of people living in the Americas at the time had a problem with this. You had the "give me liberty or give me death" speech. You had no taxation without representation as a rallying cry. And so we fought a war over unfair taxation. Unfortunately, immediately following the American Revolution, well, not immediately following, we had the Articles of Confederation, which people decided didn't give enough power to the central government, and therefore we went to the Constitution. Immediately following the adoption of the Constitution and the election of George Washington as the first president of the United States, we had something called the Whiskey Rebellion. The Whiskey Rebellion was a group of people who owned distilleries who felt that they were being taxed unfairly to pay for the revolution. So they refused to pay taxes, started a small rebellion, and George Washington, the father of our country, and to many people the father of modern liberty, sent in the troops to quell a rebellion. So a guy who fought a war against unfair taxation used violence and force to suppress people who were fighting against unfair taxation. You also have, shortly thereafter, the Alien and Sedition Acts, which limited free speech to an alarming degree, and were not just used by John Adams, but also by James Madison. They were used in both cases not to stop spies, as they were marketed to the people. They were used to suppress political rivals. In fact, we have one senator, I forget his name, but he was found guilty and sentenced to 2 years in prison, and successfully ran for and got reelected to Senate from prison, all based on the Alien and Sedition Acts. So just those few examples can show that Minarchy doesn't mean freedom. Minarchy means less tyranny. And anyone who wants to be free is not going to delegate their freedom to someone else. By contrast to Minarchy, there's anarchy. Anarchy is no rulers. Modern anarchy tends to be a leftist camp with anarcho-syndicalists, anarcho-communists, mutualists, which I like mutualists. I myself consider myself a market anarchist. One of the main tenets of modern anarchy is being anti-hierarchical. So, by its very nature, an anarchist is unwilling to trust his freedom to you or to me. An anarchist is taking his own life or her own life in their own hands. In the minarchist circles, there's typically the argument that I believe in free markets, but I think there are certain things that shouldn't be free. Typical example is national defense or policing or judicial systems. The problem with this is that when you place the power to police in the hands of a select minority, an oligarchy, you increase the potential for abuse. Whereas if it's my responsibility to defend myself, and I know it's your responsibility to defend you, I'm not going to steal from you because you have the ability to defend against me. So, by placing that into the hands of the police, well, we all know how the police state looks now. As far as national defense goes, the reason given by the Japanese that they didn't invade the mainland United States was that there would be a rifleman behind every blade of grass. If you want to be free, be armed. That's where it is. People are not going to invade a region, whether or not there's a national government, if everyone living within that region is a potential hostile. With the exception of the United States, we tend to like to do that, and it's biting us in the ass. So, with this concept of minarchy, which, yes, the U.S. Constitution was the best thing going at the time. The United States was the first experiment in minarchy to be tried on a large scale. I would also posit that it is the first failure of minarchy. What started out as the smallest government known to man morphed into the largest government in the history of mankind, and some would argue a very oppressive government at that. I don't want to demonize minarchy. Minarchy is a valid school of thought. It answers some questions. To me, it doesn't answer them well enough. Any amount of oppression is too much oppression. So, to anyone who is a minarchist who happens to stumble upon this, I would urge you to look at the history of government and see how a small government abused the powers given to it, and how today's government grew from that smaller government. I would urge you to take the next consistent leap and move from a minarchist to an anarchist. It's not a difficult leap to make. All you have to do is realize that you don't have the right to tell me how to live, and I don't have the right to tell you how to live, and you sure don't have the right to steal from me to support your life. Once you've gotten there, it's a matter of a couple of minutes before you consider yourself an anarchist. There is no competition between minarchy and anarchy. It's apples and oranges. Once you have minarchy, once you've advocated minarchy, you've advocated controlling other people. You've advocated the use of force to steal from other people and the reallocation of the ownership of labor. Once you've advocated minarchy and advocated for taxation, you said, you don't know how to spend your money, I do, give me your money. This is just such a complicated issue. I'm probably going to have to take and do it piece by piece. I think maybe tomorrow I'll go into policing and how we shouldn't have a private police force, but we should have private investigations and private arbitrations. For now, those are my opinions. Take them or leave them. Have a good one.